What's going on, guys? It's Fight Season MMA, and today I want to talk about the UFC lightweight division. I know I haven't uploaded in a while. You guys have probably thought I died, but guess what? I am back. My goal is to kind of do some videos every once in a while, see how it is getting back into the things, and I really just had a nag to give you guys some of my opinions and everything going out inside the current UFC landscape. Today, we are going to be talking about the UFC lightweight division. We got guys like Ilia Topuria, who moved up, Islam Makhachev, the champion, who's going to get the title shot. We're going to matchmake all these guys today. We're going to kind of talk about what I think what the plan should be for the UFC lightweight division, and really discuss what is going on, especially when you talk about these guys like Islam, Ilya, Charles, Arman, Justin Gaethje, all these different guys. So if you guys enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That is the best way to help the channel grow. While you're down there, please turn on the post notifications because you guys want to always be notified when I am going to be uploading videos in the very near future. But without further ado, let's jump right into the video talking about the UFC lightweight division, matchmaking it, and kind of talking about what the foreseeable future should look like. The UFC lightweight division right now is one of the hottest divisions inside the UFC. Got the current pound-for-pound champion, Islam Makhachev, at number 1. My current pound-for-pound number 2 fighter just moved into the division with Ilia Topuria. You got the likes of Charles Oliveira, Max Holloway, Arman Tsarukyan, Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, all these different guys inside the top 5 or 10 within the division. So what is the future going to look like? Because I think the biggest thing holding up the division is who is going to get the next title shot. We have 4 people in line for the title shot. First name, Ilia Topuria. I think Ilia Topuria obviously has a right to call for the title shot, was the former 145-pound king, vacated his belt in order to get a UFC title shot at 155 because the weight cut was too much for him. Second off, Charles Oliveira, calling for a UFC title shot after his win over Michael Chandler at UFC 309 in Madison Square Garden. Very fun fight. I don't know if that's necessarily the fight that gives you a title shot because Michael Chandler isn't the cream of the crop of the lightweight division quite yet, or has been at times, but it's just the lowest IQ fighter out there. But also you got Arman Tsarukyan, pulled out of UFC 311 in Los Angeles, California due to a back injury sustained the day of the fight, which is very tragic, but he is still wanting his title shot, and obviously if that didn't happen, this would be a little bit less convoluted. And Justin Gaethje just beat Rafael Fiziev for a second time at UFC 313 and is called for a title shot. But what do I think is going to happen? First off, I think the main thing that the UFC is waiting on, and the reports that I have seen, are that that Islam Makhachev is waiting on the main event of UFC 315, Belal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena. This fight is going to determine whether Islam Makhachev jumps up to the welterweight division. I think if Jack Della Maddalena beats Belal, which I shouldn't say is a likelihood because I think anyone can win. Jack is one of the best boxers inside the UFC, incredibly crisp striker, incredibly intelligent, so I could 100% see that going down. But genuinely, I do think that he could beat Belal Muhammad, although I'm still favoring Belal. If that fight happens, I see Islam Makhachev jumping up and taking the UFC welterweight title shot, which I do think is what is going to happen. So I'm gonna kind of make that as what is going down next. I do think that we do Islam Makhachev versus Jack Della Maddalena if that happens, and that's going to be what if this happens, and that's going to be my hypothetical world that I'm living in. Next off, what I'm going to do is say if Islam is gone, I think we're going to do an interim title fight on the same card. We are going to do Ilia Topuria versus Charles do Bronx Oliveira. The reason I am making this fight and not Arman Tsarukyan is because later down the road, Justin Gaethje and Arman are going to be my fight to kind of make, and I will talk about that in a second because the Arman and Charles have fought, and Gaethje and Charles have fought. Those two haven't fought. I think Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira for a UFC interim title bout would be the best thing to do. You got two of the crispest strikers inside the UFC. Charles Oliveira, incredible Brazilian jiu-jitsu artist, and genuinely one of the best fighters inside the organization. Ilia Topuria as well, an incredible fighter too, to truly go out there and really implement his name in another division and prove that he is one of the pound-for-pound greatest fighters the UFC has ever seen, let alone in the organization right now. Kind of alluded to it earlier. I think Justin Gaethje versus Arman Tsarukyan is a fight to make. I think those guys truly have a knack to go and get that number 1 contender bout. I think Justin Gaethje should not be rewarded with a title shot quite yet. He did beat Rafael Fiziev the first time. Great fight. Did beat Dustin Poirier by head kick the second time. did get knocked out by Max Holloway, and I think that's the big reason that he can't get that title shot, especially since Max is coming into the UFC lightweight division, and he did beat Rafael Fiziev on short notice. Again, still a great fight. It's eerily similar of how those two fights went down, but genuinely, I think Justin Gaethje fighting someone like Arman Tsarukyan, showing that he can beat the number one contender theoretically inside the division, would be one of the best things for the UFC to do to allow the division to, have a rightful number one contender. I would make that the interim or title fight, but I do think that Ilia Topuria deserves it more, and I do think a fight with Charles makes a lot of sense there, considering that, like I said, Charles has fought Gaethje and Arman. I think after that, you got the likes of Dan Hooker, who's there, who I do think should fight someone like Max Holloway. I do think that makes a lot of sense, considering that Dan Hooker is one of the best fighters inside the UFC featherweight or lightweight division. Just beat Mateusz Gamrot, a really good fighter, and Max Holloway coming up fighting Hooker would be a very good fight. That be for the future number one contender bout. Because you look, Max Holloway just beat Justin Gaethje, even though he got knocked out to Ilia Topuria. It's still one of those incredible things to see that he's still so good for the age that he's currently at. Dan Hooker, really good fighter. Like I said, beat Gamrot, beat Jalen Turner, all these different type of guys. And I truly think that this matchup between these two individuals would be incredibly fun to see and a really good fight to kind of narrow out the competition. It's really hard to make these fights because there are so many number one contenders inside the lightweight division right now. And they gotta kind of cancel each other out, especially if Islam doesn't move up to the top. You can only have one person fight for the belt. I would theoretically want that to be Ilia if that was the case, but it's very interesting to see what is going to go down. Moving down, we got Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett, a fight that I will give a prediction on theoretically later this week. I do think that's going to be a very good fight, a fight I got a lot of opinions on considering about who Paddy and Chandler are. Then you got some other guys. You got Mateusz Gamrot, you got Mauricio Rufy, who's coming up. Got a lot of different guys inside the UFC lightweight division, and going to be a very fun division for the very near future. Like I said, looking at the landscape of things between fighters like Charles Oliveira, Arman Tsarukyan, Justin Gaethje, Dan Hooker, it's going to be a very interesting time to see all these guys fight it out. I truly think that Islam Makhachev is respectable pound for pound number one fighter inside the organization. We finally got Dana White to admit it after that UFC 311 fight against Renato Moicano, where he submitted him with a Darce in the first round. Truly, I just see all these different fighters inside the UFC lightweight division having absolute wars with one another. Now, obviously, my takes here aren't necessarily what's going to happen or what I want to happen, because if it would be what I want to happen, Ilia Topuria, Islam Makhachev getting thrusted in at the UFC main event at International Fight Week if Tom Aspinall and John Jones couldn't go, and that would be the fight that I would want to see. There's so many different nooks and crannies coming into these different fights. You got guys like Justin Gaethje who are on the tail end of his career. You got guys like Max Holloway who are coming into the division. Sadly, Dustin Poirier has probably got one more fight inside the UFC, and I kind of didn't talk about him because I hate to say it, but he really doesn't have any implications in the top kind of whatever of the division. Could see a fight with Dan Hooker going down, but I just don't know how much that really helps the UFC lightweight division, because if Poirier beats some guy, it's going to degrade their stock. Now, obviously, if Poirier loses, what does it do for the other guy, considering that he's going to retire after this next fight? The UFC lightweight division is one of the most interested and exciting divisions inside the UFC right now, and I'm so interested to see what the future looks like coming very soon. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know what you think down below in the comment section about the UFC lightweight division right now. It's a very weird thing to where there is 3 or 4 guys who truly have a case for a title shot. If I had to go in order, if we say Islam stays down at 155, I think Ilia should get it first. I think Arman should get it second. Charles third. Gaethje fourth. I really look at the order, and it is really, really hard because everyone does have a compelling case to truly get a title shot. Even someone like Dan Hooker is like one win away from one of these top fighters and getting a title shot, which I think would be an incredible fight. There's so many different fights you could make, so many absolute banger fights that should go down, and I do think that these guys are going to be there to fight very, very soon. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA. Thank you guys for all the support and all the love during the time I took off. I think it was absolutely needed. I kind of burned out, and truly it has been one of the best journeys I've ever had on YouTube. So thank you guys so much for the support. I look back to probably coming back very soon. This is kind of just a test video, trying to see how I'm doing, what everything's going on. But truly, I wanted to get my takes out there for you guys to hear, and wanted to reconnect with the community and just see how it goes. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.